Hello everybody, and welcome to another board game discussion video. This one is really important and very near and dear to my heart, and it is all about COVID-19, the Delta variant, and virtual game conventions. So as you all know, we are getting towards the very start and the big conventions. We've got GenCon, we've got Essen. We relatively recently had the announcement of the Spiel des Jahres winners and all of this sort of thing. And I wanted to address this because for me it's critically important as a scientist, as a person, and more importantly as somebody who is particularly vulnerable to the virus. I wanted to talk a little bit about virtual conventions and essentially what are they? Do they work? Can they work? Can we continue to have them work? And so I wanted to talk about three major things. The first thing is essentially what some of the major conventions are going to be doing this year, since last year it was a little bit of a stumble because it was very sudden that everything had to shut down. Secondly, essentially, is it worth it to have anything in person at the moment? And last but certainly not least, what are we looking at for the future? And is this something that we can look at for the future? So first and foremost, what are things and places and cons doing for the virus and for in-person versus virtual and all that kind of thing? Well, let's take GenCon as one of the biggest examples here in the US, or the biggest example in the US. They are open. They are going to be in Indianapolis as planned. They are going to have their floor, they are going to have their game rooms, they're going to have everything. And the only thing is that they are limiting capacity, which is great. But one of the relatively recent announcements they made was that they are not going to require masks if you have been vaccinated. And I don't like that. I really don't. Because when something is 95% effective and you have, 10,000 people in a convention center relatively crowded together who are all maskless, 5% of 10,000 is still 500 people potentially infected and potentially able to spread and get it and then go back to wherever they came from and spread it to others who are either unvaccinated or for whom the vaccination didn't work. Yes, 95%, 96%, 97% efficacy of a vaccine is virtually unheard of. It is not something that normally happens in science. It's very impressive, especially on such a short timeline. But especially now with the Delta variant, something that spreads so much faster and creates so many more viral particles inside of the human body as it spreads, it's an extremely dangerous situation, and I hope that they do something to mitigate that. But as of right now, as I'm recording this at least, there has not been any announcement to do anything additional to try and help convention goers who are there physically. That said, what GenCon is doing as well is they are going to be posting a lot of the panels and forums and stuff like that online, and they're also going to be having miniature virtual cons where they're actually going to have like pop-up cons at different locations around the United States. So you can go and they'll have, miniature things where it'll still be relatively similar, where you have a retail setup and you can play some games and stuff like that, but with far fewer people and those who are just from a relatively tighter knit community type of thing. And I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that's a great way to kind of balance out the two. I still am not a huge fan of the physical aspect in general, but I understand people want to get back out there, and of course retailers got to sell and all of this kind of thing. I really do understand it. Essen is doing very similar things. They are taking precautions in terms of limiting capacity and all this sort of thing, as well as including a lot of virtual events that people will be able to attend. So most of the big conventions are doing something, at least. The thing is, does it go far enough? In my personal opinion, speaking as a scientist, I don't believe so. but that's just me. So second point, what does this mean for the conventions in general and as a whole? Well, the fact is, I understand they do want to open up. They do want to get back to in person because, again, the retailers got to sell. They got to peddle their games. They got to show the games. Like, if I know a lot of people where if they can't play a game, they're never going to buy it. And so you go to cons to play a game, to try a game. You need money for the convention organizers. You need money for the people who are, or the venues that are hosting conventions. You need all of this stuff, and it's very important for the economy as a whole. But at the same time, it just makes my head hurt because it just makes me so nervous, especially with the Delta COVID-19 variant out there. And yes, most vaccines are reasonably effective against it, but less effective compared to the original COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 strain. So very dangerous, and I'm honestly really scared about summer conventions for that reason. And so I am not going to be going to anything, unfortunately. I would love to, I really would, but I simply can't do it. It's just not an option. But I understand the need, I understand the desire, I understand, you know, wanting to go back out there, get back in there, get at the table, play the game, sit there and just, you know, be in that area. It's just, I miss it. I honestly do. I really do, but I just can't. I cannot do it. I can't bring myself to do it, unfortunately. So third point that I wanted to talk about is what about the future? So obviously 2020 was an interesting season because with COVID starting up really badly in the US during March, then it really put a stopper on everything for the summer as well as the winter. And so everything had to be like, okay, what are we going to do? So are we going to move to online? Are we still going to hold it? Well, now we're not allowed to hold it because things are shutting down and we have to go into quarantine. And so obviously there were huge stumbling blocks. It was a big issue, but now a lot of those quirks have been worked out and it's working a lot better, in my personal opinion. And I think that the organizers for a lot of the big conventions especially have done a great job of giving online options and virtual options for forums and panels and all of these sorts of things, not to mention still being able to look at the games and that sort of stuff. I think it's great. I really do. But at the same time, for the future, I honestly think that we should keep doing it. The fact is that not everybody can go to Indianapolis every year for GenCon, much less go to Germany for Essen Spiel or PAX West or PAX East or, you know, PAX Unplugged or whatever. I mean, E3 is another great example, but this is about board games. I really think that virtual conventions should be a thing that stay. And I wouldn't mind paying a fee, an entry fee, to get access to specific aspects of virtual conventions because it is still a convention. It is still something where I can learn about new games or whatever it is. And that's great. And it's fun. And I would love to be able to do that. And so I hope that with this infrastructure now in place for a lot of these things, they keep it and continue on for years to come. But obviously only time will be able to tell. So we'll see what happens. Now, obviously that's enough rambling from me on the subject. Like I said, this is something that is much more opinionated than most of my discussion videos, and it is still something that I am obviously very passionate about and something that genuinely worries me and scares me. But that said, most importantly, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on how conventions are going, what they are or are not doing to keep people safe? Do you think that they're doing enough? Do you think that everything is being overblown? Let me know in the comments below. Give me your honest opinion, please. I have given you my opinion. I personally don't think that the conventions are doing enough to keep people safe. I personally don't think that in-person stuff should be done still with the Delta variant spreading around. That's my opinion. If you disagree, please let me know. I would love to discuss it. That's why this is a board game discussion video. So please let me know anything and everything in the comments. But that said, as always, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my various social media pages where you can interact with myself and my channel in a whole bunch of really cool ways. And it's a little bit redundant now, but we're still in a pandemic. COVID is spreading. Please get vaccinated. Please watch out. Please be careful. Delta is out there and it is killing people. It's bad, you guys. It really is. If you haven't done so, get vaccinated. If you don't need to, don't leave the house. If you need to leave, please wear a mask. Please be safe. Please stay safe for you, your family, your friends, everybody and anybody that you care about, or even those you don't care about, because you never know what you might end up doing and who you might end up transmitting a disease to without even knowing it. But that said, thank you so much for watching. I do apologize for being a little bit more like that and emotional about it, but it is a bit of an emotional topic for me. And I think it is an important thing to be discussed, because it is balance of the brevity between keeping people safe and keeping retailers and publishers and designers and everybody in business. And I know it's a struggle, and I'm glad I don't have to make the decisions, frankly. But that said, thank you so much for watching. Hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.